The crystal chandeliers of the Burj Al Arab's royal suite cast dancing shadows across the marble floor as Dubai's elite celebrated Rashid and Amira Al Mansouri's 5th wedding anniversary. The gathering buzzed with conversations in multiple languages, Arabic, English, French, as oil executives, technology moguls, and royal family members mingled beneath the glittering lights. Rashid Al Mansouri stood at the center of attention, his designer thobe immaculate, diamond cufflinks catching the light as he gestured expansively. At 35, he commanded respect through his real estate empire that had transformed Dubai's skyline. His deep voice carried across the room as he regaled guests with stories of his latest developments. And that is how Al Mansouri Properties secured the most prestigious waterfront project in the Emirates, he concluded, raising his crystal glass of Arabic coffee. The crowd applauded appreciatively. Amira sat quietly at a nearby table, her elegant abaya flowing like midnight silk around her graceful form. Her dark eyes, lined with traditional kohl, watched her husband with a mixture of love and growing concern. She had learned to find beauty in these moments of solitude, even surrounded by hundreds of people. "Now, let me tell you about the secret to my success," Rashid continued, his voice growing louder with confidence. "It's having the right partnerships. My business partner Khalil here," he gestured toward a distinguished man in his 50s, "understands vision and strategy." Khalil nodded graciously, but his eyes flickered toward Amira with something that looked like sympathy. "And of course," Rashid's tone shifted, becoming lighter but somehow crueler, "there's my beautiful wife Amira. She provides other forms of support. Shopping, hosting parties, looking lovely at events like this." Laughter rippled through the crowd. "Though I wouldn't ask her opinion on business matters, that's not really her area of expertise." The words hit Amira like physical blows. She felt her cheeks burn beneath her hijab, her fingers tightening around her teacup. Around the room she caught glimpses of uncomfortable expressions, quickly masked by polite smiles. "Women have their place," Rashid continued, emboldened by the attention, "and Amira knows hers well. She's perfected the art of spending my money beautifully." More laughter, though some guests now looked distinctly uncomfortable. Amira rose slowly, her movements fluid and controlled despite the storm building within her chest. She had endured these moments before, but tonight felt different. Tonight, something inside her crystallized into diamond-hard resolve. "If you'll excuse me," she said softly to the guests at her table, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. As she walked through the crowd toward the terrace, she heard Rashid's voice behind her, now telling another story about his business acumen. She didn't look back. On the terrace, Dubai's skyline stretched before her like a constellation of earthbound stars. The warm Arabian breeze carried the scent of jasmine from the hotel's gardens. Amira closed her eyes and remembered her father's words from years ago. "True power, Habibti, lies not in what others see, but in what they cannot imagine." Tonight, she decided it was time for imagination to become reality.
The morning sun filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Amira's private study, a sanctuary Rashid rarely entered. While he slept off the previous night's celebrations, she sat before her computer, fingers dancing across the keyboard with practiced precision. To the world, she was simply Mrs. Al Mansouri, but the encrypted files opening on her screen told a different story entirely. Amira Khalil Al-Zahra, that was her real name, the one she'd kept hidden even from her husband. Her father, Omar Al-Zahra, had been one of the Middle East's most secretive technology investors, building a vast empire of holdings across Silicon Valley, London, and Dubai. When he died 3 years ago, he left everything to his only daughter. She scrolled through portfolio listings that would make sovereign wealth funds envious. Her inheritance included controlling stakes in artificial intelligence companies, renewable energy firms, and telecommunications giants. The total value exceeded $12 billion, including a 43% ownership in Al Mansouri Properties, Rashid's own company. Her father had acquired the shares years before she'd even met Rashid, seeing potential in the young developer's ambitious projects. Rashid had always assumed his mysterious investor was some foreign hedge fund. He'd never imagined his wife held the power to control his entire business empire. Amira had chosen silence, believing love should exist without the shadow of power. She'd wanted Rashid to love her for herself, not her wealth. But last night's humiliation had shattered that idealistic dream. Her phone buzzed with a message from Khalil, Rashid's business partner. "Amira, I'm sorry about last night. Rashid was out of line." She typed back, "Thank you for your kindness, uncle." Khalil had been her father's oldest friend, the only person who knew her true identity. He'd watched over her like a protective uncle, never revealing her secret, even as he worked alongside her unsuspecting husband. "Are you ready to reveal yourself?" his next message read. Amira's fingers hovered over the keyboard. Once she crossed this line, there would be no return to their simple life. But the memory of laughter following Rashid's cruel words made her decision clear. "Yes," she typed, "prepare the legal documents." She spent the morning making calls to lawyers, investment advisors, and board members scattered across different time zones. By noon, she'd set in motion a carefully orchestrated plan that would reshape not just Rashid's company, but his entire understanding of their marriage. When Rashid emerged from his bedroom, hair tousled and still in his pajamas, she found Amira in the kitchen, preparing his favorite breakfast, shakshuka with fresh herbs from their garden. "Good morning, Habibi," she said softly, her voice carrying none of the previous night's pain. "Did you sleep well?" "Like a stone," he laughed, settling at the breakfast bar. "What a party last night! Did you see how impressed everyone was with the waterfront project details?" Amira placed the steaming plate before him, her movements graceful and serene. "I saw many things last night." Something in her tone made him look up, but her expression remained calm, almost mysterious. For a moment, he felt as though he was looking at a stranger wearing his wife's face. "I've been thinking," she continued, pouring fresh orange juice. "Perhaps it's time I took a more active interest in business matters." Rashid laughed, the sound echoing off the marble surfaces. "Amira, you don't need to worry about such things. Leave the business to me." "Of course," she agreed, but her smile held secrets he couldn't read. "I'm sure you know best." As he ate, Amira excused herself to make final preparations. Tomorrow, Rashid would discover that his quiet, submissive wife had been the most powerful person in his life.
Rashid's Ferrari purred through Dubai's morning traffic as he headed to his office, yesterday's conversation with Amira already forgotten. The city's gleaming towers reflected the rising sun, and he felt the familiar surge of pride knowing his company had helped create this magnificent skyline. His phone rang as he pulled into his reserved parking space. Khalil's name flashed on the screen. "Good morning, partner," Rashid answered cheerfully. "Ready for another day of making millions?" "Rashid, you need to get to the office immediately." Khalil's voice sounded strained. "There's been a development." "What kind of development?" Rashid's smile faltered as he stepped into the elevator. "Is it the waterfront project? The permits came through, didn't they?" "Just get here. Conference room A, now." The elevator seemed to climb slowly, each floor adding weight to the growing knot in Rashid's stomach. When the doors opened to his executive floor, the usual morning energy was missing. His secretary avoided eye contact, and conversation stopped as he passed. In the conference room, Khalil sat with three lawyers Rashid didn't recognize, their expensive suits and serious expressions suggesting this was no routine meeting. Financial documents covered the polished table like accusations. "What's going on?" Rashid demanded, loosening his tie. "Who are these people?" "Rashid, I need you to sit down." "I'm fine standing. Just tell me what this is about." One of the lawyers, a sharp-featured woman in her 40s, opened a leather portfolio. "Mr. Al-Mansouri, we represent the Al-Zahra Investment Group. As of this morning, we're exercising our controlling interest in Al-Mansouri properties. Rashid felt the room tilt slightly. Controlling interest? That's impossible. I own 60% of this company. Actually, you own 57%. Al-Zahra holds 43%, which, combined with certain board agreements established at the company's founding, gives us effective control. Al-Zahra. The name sounded familiar, but Rashid couldn't place it. I've never heard of them. Khalil cleared his throat. They've been your silent partner since the beginning, Rashid, the foreign investment that allowed you to start this company. Then why surface now? We've had a good relationship for years. Whatever they want, we can negotiate. The lawyer slid a document across the table. The Al-Zahra Group is implementing immediate changes to company leadership and direction. Effective immediately, you're being removed from all decision-making authority. Rashid stared at the papers, the words blurring together. This is ridiculous. I built this company. I am this company. Mr. Al-Mansouri, another lawyer, interjected. The transition can be smooth if you cooperate. The group has no intention of destroying what you've built. They simply want new management. New management? Rashid laughed bitterly. And who exactly do they think can run my company better than I can? The conference room door opened, and Rashid turned expecting to see some foreign businessman in an expensive suit. Instead, Amara entered, wearing a tailored black business suit he'd never seen before, her hijab styled with elegant simplicity. She carried herself differently, not the quiet, deferential wife he knew, but someone radiating quiet authority. "Hello, Rashid," she said, her voice steady, professional. "Amara, what are you doing here? This is a business meeting." She took the seat at the head of the table, the lawyers automatically deferring to her presence. "I am the business meeting." The world seemed to stop. Rashid looked from Amara to Khalil to the lawyers, waiting for someone to explain the joke. "Amira Al-Zahra," she said formally, "majority controller of Al-Zahra Investment Group, your wife, and as of today, your new supervisor." The words hit him like a physical blow. Everything he thought he knew about his wife, his company, his life, crumbled in that moment. "That's impossible," he whispered. "I'm afraid it's very possible," Amara replied, and for the first time since entering, her professional mask slipped slightly, revealing the pain beneath. "As you said last night, everyone has their area of expertise. Business, it turns out, is mine."
3 weeks later, Rashid sat in his dramatically downsized office, staring at the resignation letters piling up on his desk. One by one, his key employees were leaving for better positions at competing firms. Positions that, he'd learned, were being quietly facilitated by Amira's extensive business network. His phone buzzed with yet another canceled meeting. The Al Sharif development deal, his most prestigious project, had fallen through when mysterious regulatory questions arose. The waterfront project faced similar obstacles. It was becoming clear that crossing Amira meant crossing the invisible web of influence her family had spent decades building. A soft knock interrupted his brooding. Khalil entered without waiting for permission, looking older than Rashid remembered. "How long have you known?" Rashid asked without looking up. "Since before you married her," Khalil admitted, settling into the chair across from the desk. "Omar Al-Zahra was my dearest friend. I introduced you two at that charity auction, remember? You set us up. It wasn't a question. I thought you'd be good for each other. Omar was dying, and Amira was so lonely, carrying all that responsibility. You were brilliant, ambitious, but you needed guidance. I thought love would bridge the gap." Rashid finally looked up, his eyes red-rimmed from sleepless nights. "Love? She's been lying to me for 5 years." "Has she?" Khalil leaned forward. "Tell me, In 5 years of marriage, has Amira ever demanded anything from you? Has she ever made you feel small or stupid? Has she ever used her wealth or connections against you? The questions hung in the air like accusations. Rashid thought of their quiet evenings together, Amira listening to his dreams and fears with patient attention, her gentle suggestions that had actually improved his business strategies, her pride in his achievements, genuine and unwavering. She could have controlled everything from day one. Instead, she chose to love you as an equal, until you made it impossible. A commotion outside drew their attention to the window. In the courtyard below, a crowd had gathered around someone speaking passionately. Rashid recognized several former employees, but they weren't protesting. They were listening, nodding, taking notes. What's happening down there? Khalil smiled sadly. Amira is announcing a new business incubator program. She's funding startup companies run by the people who've left here, giving them the respect and partnership they never found working for you. The revelation cut deep. Even in her anger, Amira was building rather than destroying. That evening, Rashid returned to their penthouse to find it transformed. Amira had moved her belongings to the guest wing, creating clear physical boundaries between them. When he found her on the terrace, she was reading business reports, looking every inch the powerful executive she had always been. "I want to understand," he said quietly. She looked up, her expression guarded but not hostile. "Understand what?" "Why you hid this from me? Why you let me treat you like—" He couldn't finish the sentence. "Like your accessory," she supplied gently. "Because I hoped you'd see my worth without needing to know my wealth. I wanted to be loved for myself, not my inheritance. And instead, I humiliated you in front of everyone. Yes, the simple word carried years of accumulated pain. You reduced me to nothing more than a beautiful object for your collection." Rashid sank into the chair beside her, the weight of his mistakes crushing. "I've lost everything, haven't I? The company, the respect of our friends, you." "You've lost the illusions," Amira corrected. "The question is, what will you build in their place?" For the first time in weeks, Rashid heard something other than anger in her voice. Not forgiveness yet, but possibility. "I don't know how," he admitted. "Then learn," she said simply. "I can teach you, if you're willing to be taught, but not as your wife trying to fix your pride, as your partner expecting your respect." The conversation marked the beginning of the hardest lesson of Rashid's life, learning to love without the need to dominate. 6 months later, Rashid stood before a mirror in what had once been his master bedroom, adjusting his tie with hands that shook slightly from nerves. Today marked his first board meeting as junior partner in the newly restructured Al Mansuri Al Zahra Properties. The hyphenated name had been Amira's idea, a symbol of true partnership rather than ownership. The man in the mirror looked different from the arrogant executive who had humiliated his wife at their anniversary party. The expensive clothes remained, but something fundamental had changed in his posture, his expression. Months of counseling and working alongside rather than above his former employees had taught him the difference between confidence and arrogance. "Nervous?" Amira's voice came from the doorway. She wore a stunning navy hijab with a matching business suit, looking every inch the successful executive she always been. But more importantly, she was smiling at him. Not the polite smile of a dutiful wife, but the warm expression of someone who genuinely enjoyed his company. "Terrified," he admitted, turning to face her. "What if I haven't changed enough? What if I revert to old habits under pressure?" She stepped closer, her perfume carrying hints of jasmine and confidence. "Then you'll remember what you've learned, apologize if necessary, and do better next time. Growth isn't about perfection, Habibi, it's about commitment to improvement." The endearment sent warmth through his chest. She'd started using it again only recently, after weeks of maintaining professional distance even in their private moments. "Are you ready for this?" she asked, gesturing between them. "Being true partners in every sense?" Instead of answering immediately, Rashid reached out and gently took her hands. Her fingers were elegant and strong, capable of signing deals worth millions or tenderly caring for the small garden she'd planted on their terrace. "I'm ready to try," he said honestly. "I'm ready to love you the way you deserve, as an equal, as a partner, as the brilliant woman you've always been." Amira's smile deepened. "That's all I ever wanted." The board meeting proved to be a revelation. Sitting beside Amira rather than across from her, Rashid discovered how naturally they complemented each other's skills. Her strategic vision combined with his operational knowledge created something more powerful than either could achieve alone. When disagreements arose, they listened to each other, built on each other's ideas, found solutions together. After the meeting, as Dubai's skyline glittered beyond their office windows, Amira surprised him by taking his hand as they reviewed the quarterly reports. "I have a confession," she said, her eyes twinkling with mischief. "I've been planning something." Rashid raised an eyebrow. "Should I be worried?" "It depends on how you feel about renewals." From her desk drawer, she produced 2 plane tickets to the Maldives, the same destination where they'd honeymooned 5 years ago. "I thought we might celebrate our first anniversary, the anniversary of when we really became partners." Rashid felt tears threaten his composure. The gesture was so perfectly Amira, generous, thoughtful, looking forward rather than dwelling on past mistakes. "I love you," he said, and the words carried new weight. Not the possessive declaration of someone claiming ownership, but the humble gratitude of someone who'd been given an undeserved second chance. "I love you too," and she leaned into his embrace. As the sun set over Dubai, painting their office in shades of gold and crimson, they held each other in comfortable silence. Outside, the city they'd helped build stretched toward the horizon, full of possibilities. Their company would continue to grow and thrive, built now on a foundation of mutual respect and genuine partnership. But more importantly, their love had been rebuilt too, stronger than before, based not on illusions or power dynamics, but on the simple, revolutionary recognition of each other's full humanity. In the distance, the call to Maghrib prayer echoed across the city, and Amira smiled against Rashid's shoulder, knowing that some transformations are worth waiting a lifetime to achieve.